Yeah.
Live? Oh, we live. Hello.
Hey.
Hey, what's up? Energy.
Yeah, it's missing a little bit.
You sound sad and depressed, Mark. Hearing your voice.
Well, season's over. I was telling you earlier, got a bit of football fatigue, so I'm not mad it's over, but just felt a little flat. Derek, how you doing?
I'm good. I never get fatigued of football.
I want to call out just quickly. Derek was watching the game like 20 minutes behind us. He had it recorded,
I did.
and
You
the
know how I
Chiefs
found
score a
out?
touchdown, and I get a message from Derek being like, "Wow, game over." So what are you talking about? Turned out he was talking about the Devontae Adams touchdown 20 minutes ago. And
Yeah.
he realized
Yeah.
he was a little
So we
behind.
went over to our neighbor's house to watch the game, and I came back at halftime, but my wife stayed over there. But when I got back, I rewinded it. Anything I missed, while I was coming over, let the dog out. So my wife comes back home in the fourth quarter, and she's like, "Haven't I already seen this?" And then it hits me because I'm realizing the comments you guys are making, the text messages, and I'm like, "Oh gosh, felt like an idiot." But yeah. Anyways,
How far away do your neighbors live?
oh, they're right next door.
You were like 20 minutes behind us.
Well, he got home and picked something
Stumbled
to
hard.
drink. I let the dog out.
Okay. That makes sense.
Anyways,
Now.
The
Chris,
Chiefs scored a touchdown, and Derek was like, "Eagles, this might be a shutout."
this is
And
where it's over.
and I said, "Man, you need to get some better internet." And Derek's like, "What the hell is this guy talking about over here?" So it was funny.
yeah.
No, I'm good. The game was not as entertaining. I think it was a lot of us hoped, but I think there are a lot of everlasting repercussions and a lot of bigger things to talk about from this game. Obviously, we'll talk about the game. But yeah, there's a lot of legacies getting made or taken away from this one game. So a lot of long-term implications for some of these players is what we saw, and I think that's exciting in itself.
I won my first ever squares last
Yeah,
night.
what is it? I don't.
Twice.
You kept saying squares last night. I don't even know what that is. I was acting like I
It's
knew.
when
What
you're
is it?
Squares?
you never played
Squares.
squares.
All right. Chris.
Like
Chris
tic tac toe? I don't know what squares is.
Chris about to turn 40, so I don't know. Maybe this is a last decade thing. It's where you have
No,
0 to
around.
9 across the top for one team, and then 0 to 9 down the bottom. And so you have all these squares, and at the end of each quarter, whatever the team's last number is what you get. So you have to match up.
Never heard of that my entire
So if you
life.
draw to 0, you're in really good shape.
So you want like 0 or what? Maybe like a 4?
0,
7?
4, 7, 3, then a bad.
Gotcha. Okay, I
guess
understand.
maybe the blue collar world doesn't have the squares,
Well, we don't have the money like you guys do to be just like, betting big dollars on these games.
Yeah, my
here,
$3 squares really hit the bank account hard.
Say, don't throw me in
Okay.
there. I wasn't playing any squares. I don't have the money for that either.
Sorry, I never heard of it. So news to me.
Well,
News to the
I
old guy.
won on the anthem, went over, which was good. I do have to shout out to whoever sung the anthem. He repeated the second last line 3 times, got me over the
Oh.
edge. So
Insider trading. Maybe he had money on.
Again, yeah. Big.
had to. And then I also won the coin toss for the first time ever, which I know is 50-50, so it was due.
Didn't you keep
Got
talking about
there
the
with
kickoff? Weren't you big on the kickoff too? Weren't you
You
saying
bet
The
on
old
that?
rules I was,
Oh,
because
you didn't bet this one.
I don't know if it's even possible anymore, but the theory used to be the ball goes straight into the Hall of Fame. So it's blown up, it's rock hard, it's a brand new ball, so they can't kick it too far. So you always bet on it being returned. But
No, they smashed this
nowadays,
thing.
these guys just booed it. Anyway,
Gotcha.
let's get to the actual game. Very interesting because all season, Derek and I have been like, ugh, Chiefs, worst team ever to be number 1 seed. And Chris goes, oh, it's the Chiefs. And then we get to the Super Bowl and you two go Philly. And I go, you know what? I've bagged the Chiefs all year. I'm not going against them. And look what happened. So maybe it's me. Maybe
You start
I'm
drinking the
devil.
Kool-Aid. You believed in them.
Well, I did. So, Chris, to start with you, let's go through the start of the game. First quarter. It's fresh in our mind. We'll go through quarter by quarter. Good start by Philly. They almost score a touchdown. There's a stupid pass interference. And all the NFL world is going, here we go. Got the referees. Get back in it. But then from the very first drive, Chiefs Mahomes was scrambling. And that laid the groundwork for the game. How early on, there was a question today, how early on did you think Chiefs are in trouble here? At what point? Chris, you go first.
I mean, you could see from early on that their offensive line was getting pushed around and they could not move the ball a yard. They were having a lot of trouble moving the ball. But you just thought as, it's Andy Reid, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Kelsey. They've been in these moments a million times. Like, they've been in these situations a million times. Eventually, the flags, or if you want to say it, are going to fall their way, and everything's going to start falling their way, and they're going to start putting points on the board. So it took me a little while to say this team is just done. They're out of it. I was not going to write them off in any point in that first half, even though it looked clear as day that the Chiefs had no business being on the same field as the Eagles. I've seen the Chiefs do it too many times. Wouldn't you guys agree with that? You see them do too many times. So I was just waiting for them to break out, and it just never happened.
Yeah, so at 17-7, after the pick six, I thought, there's, a minute 36 to go. You watch Reid just scheme up a 2-minute drive down the field, and Mahomes, they're going to be 17-7 at halftime, and then it's going to be game on.
Because the Chiefs defense was actually playing really well, and they shut Saquon down. He had no room to run the entire game. The defense was doing fine. The offense was just, oh my Lord. I've never seen a Kansas City offense with Mahomes and Kelsey and these guys get shut down like that in that first half of the game. I've never seen it.
So that second interception that he threw to and then they scored and went up 24-0. I was like, oh, I'm not liking this. And I think Mahomes they didn't get over the 50 until late in the third quarter. Absurd. Derek, how about you? When did you feel like the Chiefs were in a bit of trouble?
Listen, everybody, we've been talking about this all year long, where they pull out the secret weapons, they play down to their opponent, and, they do this every time. They come back and they just win the game, these close ones. Listen, I've been saying all season, Kansas City Chiefs could have easily been a 6 or 7 loss team, okay? It's that simple. The Eagles' defense wins championships. Guys, 0 blitzes. Their front, it was just their front. Their defensive line was just putting so much pressure on Mahomes. And then on the flip side of that, the Chiefs' defense, like you said, Chris, they did a great job of stopping Saquon. They were making Jalen Hurts make plays, and that's exactly what he did. So, at the end of the day, the defense, though, the Eagles' offense could have played mediocre, and, their defense was that good. But I don't want to hear from all the Chiefs fans of, out there saying, everybody was saying that they're going to make a comeback. They're going to win this game. No, it was over after the first quarter. I could tell.
There's the answer. I was waiting to see, when did you feel like the game was over? We got there in the end. First quarter. Yeah. All right. So, let's touch on the no blitzing and 4-man rush the whole game. Chris, you kind of said that was the key. If they can get pressure on with 4.
I did say that. Yeah, those people agreed. People disagreed. But
a lot of people disagreed. Yeah. Shout out to the guy that disagreed.
Yeah,
who said
that one guy. Screw you.
He said that Harrison Butker was the X factor of this game. I didn't even know he was out there. Kicked off a few times. That's about it. Idiot. Anyway, sorry, I don't like calling our fans idiots, but that one guy, he can get fucked. Yeah, so rushed 4 all game, absolutely dominated. So when Patrick Mahomes had time, there's 7 guys back there defending. There was nowhere to throw the ball. Then, the first intercept, I think, was a really poor decision, but that was, again, great coverage and then great D-line moves. And the second one, they had a guy in his face right away. Just they haven't faced that all season. What happened to the Chiefs O-line?
Okay,
how did you struggle so bad?
No. Here's the thing: the Chiefs are not as bad as they portrayed themselves to be last night, and the Eagles are not as good as they portrayed themselves to be last night. These teams are a lot more evenly matched across the board. I think the Eagles have a little more talent, but this game came down to will and motivation. And we talked about it last week that the Eagles, I said it myself, the Eagles are going to be fired up, they're pissed off, and they're sick and tired of everybody talking about this is just Kansas City. You're going to be a part of history. You're going to be the team that solidifies this team's three-peat. And they came out pissed. They were angry. And you just saw them using all that energy and anger to motivate themselves to just beat the crap out of Kansas City. And on the other side of it, Kansas City came out a little lackadaisical, a little like we are the back-to-back Super Bowl champs. We ran through the AFC, which y'all two kept saying is the better conference. That's what I always hear from you guys, AFC, AFC, AFC. So if the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC, which is the better conference, then ex facto, the Chiefs deserve to be there as well. So I just think you saw such a huge motivation factor when you add Saquon in together with the defensive players, with all these guys, and that's what you saw. I thought we would see that eventually. I thought we would see that in the second half. I was shocked that we saw that from the first play of the game through the last play of the game. That's to me what was the big difference in this game was the motivation factor, and they were just so pissed off that everybody was basically writing them off before the game even started. That's what I saw out there.
I was very excited in the beginning. I'm sorry you asked me about the first quarter, and I just kind of went off. But, I mean, I told you what I thought. I mean, can we go back to the Green Bay Packers and then the Commanders? Like, the whole time, I believed in the Eagles team, and their defense was stout, man. Like, yeah, I just thought that the Chiefs weren't going to win this game, okay? And I didn't think the Chiefs were great coming into the Super Bowl. Yeah, they won some close games, and they made it through the playoffs. They're back-to-back champs, and I understand that. But from watching just this season, I did not think the Chiefs were going to beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl this year.
Well, I didn't pick, like I said, I picked the Eagles too because it was strength versus weakness, right? The strength of the Eagles is their front four, and wider seven, and the big weakness on the Chiefs was their offensive line. And we had talked about this and saying I said it myself, it's going to be similar to the Tampa Bay Super Bowl because that was the same exact matchup, right? Chiefs had a shaky O-line. Tampa Bay had a huge, big front. And, the issue is Patrick Mahomes has already been through this once before, right? He already saw this with Tampa Bay. They made no adjustments, and you would expect a team of this caliber with this talent, with all, this coaching, all this stuff to make some adjustments. And they just had zero answers for that front four. Zero. They could do nothing.
But me and Mark all season long. Go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
No, I've heard a lot about the connection to Tampa Bay, and here's where it's different to me. I mean, like the game went the same. The O-line had nothing. Pat couldn't do anything. But here's where it's different. First one is they were injured. Their O-line was injured against Tampa Bay. They had like 2 or 3 guys out. They were depleted. This time they were healthy. So their O-line was just that bad, and that's all starters. That's concerning. Number 2 is Patrick Mahomes, when he had Tyreek Hill, how many times did he just sit back there, drop back, and launch the ball? Like deep, deep, deep. The Chiefs' play style changed a little bit. Lot short passes, quick passes, options, RPOs, all these different things. And that's why I thought the Chiefs would win. I was like, that's how you stop a defensive line is by quick throwing with options where the defense kind of gets put in 2 minds. I didn't see any of that. He was running for his life from the start. Kelsey was dropping balls. Hopkins dropped balls. Mahomes' passes were off by half a yard here and there. And then he had guys in his face and he was throwing interception. It was a bad game from them. So, I don't know. I don't know what their offseason is going to look like. Because, again, after Tampa, they went and traded with the Ravens for Orlando Brown. I feel like they have to do something again because I felt they were exposed. And I think, we'll talk about what the future holds, but yeah, it was pretty dominant. And I thought halftime there'd be some change, like some scheme change, something, but it was much of the same.
Yeah. And I thought all season long, me and Mark, which I was shocked that, Mark, you picked the Chiefs to win it because all season long we've been saying the same thing outside of Chris, who's been saying, well, this is what the Chiefs do. This is how they play. This is what they do. Like, I get that. But, I mean, all season we said, yeah, Chiefs they're good, but are they Super Bowl caliber this year? No. They were in a lot of close games that they won that they should have lost. And at the end of the day, it came back and bit them. They lost Super Bowl.
Yeah, and it's a good question. Why did I pick the Chiefs? It's hindsight's 2020. But I thought they picked it up. It was almost like, all right, you've won 2 Super Bowls in a row. It's got to be hard to go through another training camp, to go through another week 1, to go and play the Raiders twice, all these terrible teams. It's hard to get up for that. And I saw them get better throughout the season, so I expected that 3-peat. I mean, the talk going into this game was if Patrick Mahomes wins 3 in a row, is he the greatest of all time? Is Andy Reid the greatest coach of all time? All these things that haven't been done. And now that's just out the window. No one's going to be able to say that Mahomes is better than Brady right now. So I just thought there was so much motivation for them, which, to your point,
and
Chris, might have pissed off the Eagles.
Yeah, and I don't blame you for picking the Chiefs at all. Even though that was obviously not what we saw. The Eagles are a very volatile team. Like, we saw what Eagles team we got on the field, but we could have just, I mean, they were up 17-0. AJ Brown was about to have antics on the, he was starting to freak out on the sidelines because he didn't get a ball thrown to him. Thankfully for his team, he got a touchdown pass, there was the next touchdown that he caught or whatever. But like this team, and we'll talk about the Eagles, I'm sure, but like, just because they won this game and dominating fashion does not mean that they are the next best thing either. Like, this thing could implode at any moment. And so I don't blame you at all for picking the Chiefs. They were the more veteran team. They had Patrick Mahomes. They have Andy Reid. They've been in this moment a million times. So, I mean, I don't blame you for that. So, but yeah, obviously it didn't work out that way. But yeah, we don't know what kind of Philadelphia team we're going to get from week to week. And we saw it during the season. We saw that last year with this team. They have immense talent, but Jalen Hurts, you don't know which Jalen Hurts you're going to get. So you just don't know. It all came together for them at the right time with the right motivation. And, hats off to them. They deserved it. But to say that, like, if these teams played 10 times, that Philadelphia would win 9 out of 10 times, that's ridiculous. There's just, no, that's not what the case would be. It would be a lot closer. So, no, I don't blame you at all for picking Kansas City.
But hats off to Jalen Hurts, too, because I said that I thought the Chiefs were going to win because they were going to find a way to limit Saquon Barkley and force Jalen Hurts to throw the ball, and he was going to crumble. He did the complete opposite. I know he threw an interception, but he ran the ball well. He threw the ball well. He's MVP. And essentially, I think that he knew that's what the Chiefs were going to do. And he was like, all right, if that's what you want to do, I'm going to make you regret it. And he killed it. I mean, the throw to Devontae Smith was, a pearl. It was lovely. So,
Jalen Hurts is one of those guys. Jordan Love's like the same way. They never get too high or too low, right? No matter how the game's going, they're just kind of like steady. And when you're winning, and he's playing well, you think he's like the best guy and you want him on your team. But when you're losing and you see no like fire from him or no energy from him, that's why he gets so much criticism and gets attacked so much. Because like, where's your fire? Where's your spirit? But the good thing about he's so level-headed with everything. If he makes a mistake, he threw that interception early, it never gets to him, right? When A.J. Brown's freaking out in the sidelines, it doesn't seem to get to him. He doesn't seem to get like nervous or offended or put pressure on himself. And this is what you seem to get in these high-pressure moments. This is 2 Super Bowls now where he is like just lit it up. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, if you can, this is a guy, you got to get him to the playoffs. If you can get him to the playoffs, he's going to show out. I compared to like a Joe Flacco, right? I don't think anybody would say he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Or if you do, maybe you can disagree with me. But in those big moments, he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
What do you think, Derek? Because I think he's close to 5 now. We have the 4. You have Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, and Jackson. But 5 is always the debate. A lot of people say Matt Stafford, he's aging a little bit. Like, is Hurts number 5? Is there anyone better than him?
It's just his regular season numbers. I know that shouldn't matter when Super Bowls, but they're
based off regular season, and you could kind of, you have him up there. Probably Baker's up there too.
Do you know who he reminds me of? Jalen Hurts, his early career. Russell Wilson. I'll tell you why. Russell Wilson came into the league, wasn't really, he wasn't like a top 5 pick. He was around 3. He had an insane defense. He had a Marshawn Lynch, great running back, decent O-line. He had a great team around him. But he's really good at just being that game manager and not explosive, but throwing the ball where it had to go, running the ball when he had to, and it doing well. Won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Very similar trajectories.
How many quarterbacks can you put on that team? You got, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, the best offensive line in football. Some would argue the best running back in football, right? I mean, he has just got it stacked around him. So he made amazing throws to Super Bowl. I don't want to harp on him. He deserved to be the MVP. He made timely decisions and timely throws, but he has a lot of talent put around him, to be successful. And you would think during the regular season you would just see bigger numbers than what I've seen from him, right? The stats that he puts up with those, with those weapons just all around him.
I was just impressed too with just the ability to make some things happen with his legs. A couple of times during that game that were really big plays when he took off.
Yeah.
I was just impressed. And Chris, we talk about this, like, what does a quarterback do when they get to the playoffs and in the Super Bowl? Like, with his performance this year in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, like, you got to, tip your hat to the guy, regardless of how much talent surround him. He got the job done. And
yeah, with this win, you give him the benefit of the doubt. If he's struggling in the regular season, you can't write him off if they come in as a wild card or something of that nature, just because what he's already shown you he can do in high pressure playoff games, right? You can't write this guy off even if he struggles during the regular season. That's what Jalen Hurts. He gets the benefit of the doubt now because of what he's delivered twice now in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so let's talk about Philadelphia's the construction of that team. It's a good debate. You ever look at like a team like Cincinnati, who has all of their chips are in on Joe Burrow. Look what happened. They didn't make the playoffs. So like, what's the balance? Like, this team is built so well where you have Jalen Hurts. We just spoke about him not really being a Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson like level of skill, but he's good enough to lead that team around and get the ball to these playmakers. So he's about $20 million less, a little bit a year. I don't know, like $10, $15 million less a year. I don't know his contract. But they've been able to put that money elsewhere and just let him get someone who feeds the ball to them. I'm not going to say game manager because he's a bit more than that. But is this the way to go now? You kind of find a quarterback that is good but not great, get value out of him, and then put that money elsewhere. We'll talk about their drafting and everything else, but it seems to be like the age of this $60 million quarterback, it's starting to not work for him. So the Cowboys, another great example.
Yeah, I mean, it's the salary cap era, right? If you look at the 49ers who went to Super Bowl last year, it's a similar, obviously a lot cheaper model, right? But like, if you can get a mid-level quarterback and put that much talent around them, it seems like it gives you just as much chance to go to the Super Bowl as if you have one of these top tier guys. You start paying these guys $65, $70 million a year where they start hitting $50 million against the cap. I mean, that money has to come from somewhere. In Philadelphia, it's right opportunity, right place, right time, right? Hurts, big contract, hasn't really taken all the huge cap hit yet. And then they've drafted so well. We talk about all the Georgia guys they have. Zach Bond, who was a free agent they got from New Orleans, who has been an amazing linebacker. They signed him into a 1-year deal. So now, right, now they got to do what these other teams do. You won the Super Bowl because you got guys who are underpaid. Now you got to start paying some of these guys more money. So where do you start to, take some of that talent back to try to keep that well-rounded team? It's the reason why we don't have dynasties in the NFL for that's why Kansas City and New England are very rare, because it's so hard to maintain that team, that 22 starters, high level talent. And it's the same thing's going to happen to Philly.
So his contract, by the way, is one of the greatest constructed contracts I've ever seen, right? It's on average, it's $51 million a year. That's his average salary. This year, the cap hit was just under $22 million. Amazing for a quarterback, $22 million. Next year, it's $32. Still pretty good.
Absolutely.
Year after that, it's $32. In 2 years' time, that $42 million is probably what worth $20 now with the salary cap going up. So the Eagles have got him in a really good position where he gets an average of $51 million a year. That's a great deal for him. But the cap hit is so minimal for a quarterback of his level. They're getting so much out of him, and they've been able to pay other guys. So, I mean, we can talk about the GM. What's the GM's name? His name is pulling away from.
But
I'm not prepared for this.
That's where you see,
Howie Roseman. God.
Yeah, Howie Roseman. But Kansas City had to make those decisions, right? They had 2 great corners. They had to trade one of them, right? Because they couldn't afford to keep both of them. Obviously, their wide receivers have been a struggle. They had to trade Tyreek. They didn't do that because they wanted to, right? They've traded these guys because they've had to. And Philadelphia hasn't been in that situation yet. So so that lets them sign guys like Saquon, right? And keep A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. So those are the reasons why. Draft well, and then, not pay somebody an exorbitant amount of money. You can build these really, really, really talented teams.
But yeah, here's an interesting thing, right? So we just said that Jalen Hurts' average salary is $51 million. Mahomes' average salary is $45 million. His cap hit this year was $66 million, 3 times the amount of Hurts. Next year, it's 68, and it's 64. It's like he's on less money overall, average. I mean, it's a 10-year contract, but it's less average salary, but triple the cap hit. So I don't know how Philly did it, but that's pretty impressive. Derek, what about you Georgia boys? Yeah, they were all over the park last night.
I love it. I've never been a...
Is this a strategy, right? if like they used to do it with Alabama, if you get a team that's pretty dominant throughout a couple of seasons in college, you just draft all of them, no matter what their numbers say, because you go, these guys are winners. They're part of a culture that wins, and they all work together well. And I mean, you have Jalen Carter, I know, but everyone contributed. Nolan Smith has contributed this year. So has the big dude,
N'Kobe Dean, Jordan Davis.
Yeah. So, I mean, is that what you do?
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to figure out, like, was I watching the 2021 Bulldogs last night? Just had green jerseys on, Never been I don't have a favorite NFL team. I told you guys that. But, hey, with all my dogs on this defense, I mean, hey, fly, Eagle, fly. I mean,
he's a Philly fan.
I might have to
Super Bowl.
I might have to jump on the Philly the train here. But yeah,
why not?
I was just impressed. I mean, congratulations to all the Georgia guys, especially on that defense, and great job of them drafting them because it's panned out in their favor. Eagles, whatever's going on, maybe they like the Georgia guys, but I loved it. I loved seeing their defense get after it last night and seeing those guys have some success.
Yeah, Jalen Carter was a predicted number 1 pick. He fell because of his little incident. He then refused to go and do tryouts. Fell to number 9 or 10 at Philly. And I mean, again, talk about value. They got value out of Hurts' contract. They're getting value out of their draft picks. Cooper DeJean, another one. But yeah, I mean, Jalen, just stay away from any vehicle over the next couple of weeks. Go down to Philly, go to the parade, get on the bus, just have a good time.
Also, just like talking about their defense, I mean, we can probably talk about this too, is just the guys that they have drafted, and they're so young still on that side of the ball, is what's really scary. If they can keep those guys, those young players, the 23, 24, 25-year-olds, I mean, they're extremely young. There's some bright days ahead in Philly. I mean, that's a talented defense with some young players on it.
Yeah, Cooper DeJean. What a rookie season.
Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. I mean, those are
Mitchell,
two of the best draft picks probably, I mean, they could have had. And I mean, guys have just contributed left and right this past year.
Chris, if you were the GM of Philly, do you think that Nick Sirianni would be here right now? Because
are you asking me if I would already fired him?
Well, I mean, like, obviously you're going to say no, but I think if you had done a survey of Philadelphia fans at the end of last season, you would have got a good 50-50 say he should have been fired. They weren't winning, so all of a sudden his antics weren't great. They were just disruptive to the team. There's a video of a guy throwing popcorn at him after a game, and now he's a Super Bowl champion. So Harry Roseman...
I still think he's on a short leash.
He's won a Super Bowl.
I don't care. I don't... Like, what did he say to Kellen Moore? Do you see what he said to Kellen Moore after the game? He's like, please don't leave, Kellen. Run this thing back. Whoa. What does that tell you? He's a little worried.
Oh, you are not going to take a little tongue-in-cheek 24 hours after news breaks, little tongue-in-cheek comment. You're going to say he's worried?
Yeah. He's an offensive-minded coach.
I think he's worried about losing his coordinators. Absolutely. Because you saw the turnaround with this team from last year to this year, and two of the biggest changes they made was they fired both their OC and their DC, and they brought in like totally different guys with totally different schemes, and it worked out with them. So when you go to Philadelphia had a lot of problems last year, and they turned a lot of those things around. And I just, if I'm going to give percentage of credit, I'm just not going to give Sirianni a big percentage of credit for that. I just don't. He didn't bring in those GMs. He didn't bring in those players. He didn't draft those players. And I still have questions about him as the coach of this team. Obviously, when a Super Bowl gives you a little leeway, but Philadelphia, they will boo Philadelphia, their fans, they don't mess around. Okay. So if next year starts going bad early, like I said, this Super Bowl will be nothing for them. They will turn on you in a second. I mean, so I don't know.
You're not wrong, but also they made the Super Bowl 2 years ago and their coordinators got cleaned out. Okay. They went to Indianapolis, they went to Arizona, and then you had 1 year where, maybe they made some bad coordinated decisions. They took a Seattle guy to be
and everybody's talking about firing him then when he had already made it to a Super Bowl. I mean, obviously that Super Bowl appearance gave him no leeway whatsoever either.
What I'm saying is that you got swept out with all your coordinators 2 years ago. You had one bad year, and then you just went and found two more that got you back. So yeah, he might get cleaned out, and they might have a down year next year. We'll see. But I think he's a good head coach because he knows who to put in these positions. He goes and finds them and turns them back around. And they've also got, the best roster in football. It's very attractive to anyone that wants to come and prove themselves as a coordinator or there. So I think they'll be okay. I mean, what Vic Fangio, does he plan on coaching again, like head coaching?
I feel like he did it. He's like 70 years old.
He might, exactly. So he might just do a Spagnolo and just be like, you know what, I'm happy here. I'm going to teach a defense. And Sirianni's an offensive guy. So,
I guess the question is, I guess what we're trying to say is, like, is this sustainable for Philadelphia? Like, and it sounds like we think different things. It feels like y'all are saying that you feel like this is sustainable and this could be the makings of something big. And my opinion is it's a lot more volatile than people are saying, and you need more than just high level talent. And I think this could go south like very quickly. So I think that's kind of, where the rubber meets the road for what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I disagree with you. I think there's going to be some good days ahead for Philly. I like talent, and I think there's more championships coming to that city.
Yeah, again, I think that Sirianni has shown the ability to lose a lot of coaches, rebound, come back. I mean, yeah, he's always on the edge of this whole thing's about to fall apart, as it always feels like that at Philly. But maybe that helps them, or it's what they want. And I'm looking at their cap space. Man, these guys are paying players nothing. I mean, obviously, Jalen Carter's on a rookie deal. Devonta Smith is still on a rookie deal, it looks like. Jalen Hurts is their number one cap hit at $21 million. It's absurd.
Yeah.
They're a great team.
I think about their division. I think about the Washington Commanders. I think about Jaden Daniels on a rookie contract. And I think Washington has like $60, $70 million in cap room. They over achieved this year. So now they're about to spend that money. So I think you're going to have two big teams in that division going forward, and only one of them can obviously win it. So when I think about Philadelphia, I think about the division as well. I don't care about Dallas. We're not going to talk about Dallas and the Giants. Oh my God. I read they might sign Aaron Rodgers. So I'm not talking about those two teams, but I think you're going to have two heavyweights in that division for the next 2 or 3 years who are going to be going head to head. Right. So I think that's going to be a factor in that as well. And I'm sorry, I love Jaden Daniels, and I think he's going to be a better quarterback, than a Jalen Hurts in the short term. As far as
probably a bigger upside.
Yeah. So I think that goes in factor as well.
I don't know, when you can replace Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox with Cam Jurgens and Jalen Carter, it's crazy. The GM just has an eye for everything. So as long as you get the talent there, I think Sirianni does an unconventional but good job of getting the best out of him.
Yeah, the talent's there. Hey, like Saquon has really had until this. He's had 2 healthy years in his 7 seasons. So I mean, he had a healthy year. I see, played every single game. I just, as he gets closer to 30, obviously bad things can happen. I know I'm negative Nelly, and I'm always half glass empty guy. I guess that's just my persona. But that's just, everything went right for them this year. And I just don't know if that's going to happen, next year for these guys.
Yeah, quick question. You mentioned earlier Saquon, arguably the best running back in the league. Who's challenging him right now?
Well, I think Derrick Henry had an unbelievable season as well. I just think your Baltimore Ravens don't want to give him enough carries. So I think Derrick Henry, if he got enough carries, he would have had just as many yards or more than Saquon. But obviously he'll be a year older. He'll be 30? Was he 33 next year or what have you? So
doesn't look like slowing down.
I would say going into next season, Saquon's definitely got to be considered the top running back in football. But these running backs, it changes quick, and these guys coming out of college, these running backs are ready to go from the start. So and obviously you got the best player in Buffalo up there as a great running back, so he'll take a step forward next year too. So because he'll have to. But other than that, I definitely would have Saquon at number 1. I would have him at 1. I would have Derrick Henry at 2. But I think they're close. I definitely think they're close.
Okay. before we go, Derek, any final thoughts before we talk about the Chiefs on Philadelphia? Sorry, no. All right. I'll ask you first, then, Derek. The Chiefs, where do they go from here? So I'll paint a picture for you again.
Yeah,
They got beat pretty bad by Tampa a couple of years ago, 4 years ago. They went and beefed up their O-line and then won the Super Bowl next year, and again the year after. Mm-hmm. No, sorry, the year after they lost to the Bengals. Then they went and won 2 in a row. So, do you think it's going to happen again? Will the Chiefs going to find a way, or do we think that there's a little bit of concern for the next foreseeable future? I know you got Patrick Mahomes, but there's a lot of questions. You go first.
I think there's some concern for the foreseeable future. I mean, we just talked about the salary cap. They're spending quite a bit of money. Some players that are, a lot of veterans on that team that are starting to age. Offensive line that got dominated that we just saw in the Super Bowl. It's not very good. I think there's a decline happening in Kansas City. And you guys may disagree with me, but I do not think Kansas City gets back to Super Bowl next year. That's my prediction.
Yeah. The difference between this and 4 years ago, there's three people that come to mind. One is Travis Kelce. He looks like a shell of himself. There's a chance he'll retire. He didn't have a great season this year, and he was terrible last night. 2 is Andy Reid. Dude's not young. He's getting on. He's won plenty of Super Bowls. It's going to be hard. And then Spagnuolo. That with Mahomes is your core. So 3 of them, there's question marks. So I don't know how you replace that. The O-line you mentioned. Mahomes, I know he's Mahomes, but he was awful last night, and he didn't have a good season. He was never even in the conversation for MVP. You get Rashid Rice coming back, so you're offensively, you're not too bad. Running backs, you're looking okay. Chris Jones is getting on. How old's Chris Jones? There seems to be a lot of holes, and all these guys that have just got you there year after year are starting to fall away. And I don't see too much coming through for, encouraging to say they'll be back there again. Again, not going to write off Mahomes, okay? They're going to be thereabouts. But if you're the AFC, if you're the Bengals, if you're the Bills, if you're the Ravens, I'm watching last night and I'm going why are we scared of these guys? Why are we choking against these guys? We're going to really go for it next year. I think the Chiefs are going to really have a target on their head in the AFC. That's my part. Chris?
It's just all I hear all season was talking up the Ravens and talking up the Bills and talking up all these teams. And the Chiefs beat those teams. But now, because they lost to the Eagles, who were a far superior team in this game, now the Chiefs are done. And it's the Bills and the Ravens and the Bengals again. So when I look at, so you're telling me the Chiefs are not going to be the marquee team in the AFC. Which team is going to take that place from them? Which team is going to take that mantle? Because if you're telling me it's the Bills, I could talk about that for hours, why it wouldn't be the Bills, right? If you're telling me it's the Bengals, they got their own set of problems that are way far above what the Chiefs have at this point, okay? And then I think the only team that you could make a legitimate argument for is Baltimore, because they're still young in a lot of positions. They have the good coaching. They have Lamar and all that stuff. But if you're telling me to write off the Chiefs with this coaching staff as currently constructed, this organization,
well, it wasn't question.
You're saying are the Chiefs in trouble? That's the question.
Yeah, they're concerns for their future.
Yeah. So I have a lot more concerns about all the other AFC teams, maybe except for one, other than the Chiefs. I trust this organization, and I trust the general manager. They've already had to run it back once. And when they got rid of Tyreek, everybody wrote them off and said they're done. Right? When Tampa Bay beat the crap out of them and just ripped them apart, everybody said it was done, and they ran it back and won 2 more Super Bowls. So no, I am not going to write this team off. As long as they got Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes, I think they will have still will be the marquee team in the AFC until one of these teams that y'all keep toting up takes it away from them. And I don't see anything other than Cincinnati with the Joe Burrow, but their team is just a mess right now, right? So I don't see it happening. So I think next year, beginning of the year, Chiefs still have to be considered the favorite in the AFC, and somebody's got to take it from them because nobody's going to give it to them. And just because you're Buffalo and you got Josh Allen, he's a pretty boy, that does not mean they're going to beat Kansas City in a playoff game. I just don't buy it. Kansas City was weak this year. They all said it all year long. This is the weakest they've ever been, and they still made it out of the AFC. So I don't know. Kelsey was bad all year.
You're not wrong with it saying. I didn't say that these other teams were going to beat them. I'm saying if you are those other teams and you're watching what happened to the Chiefs last night, like that to me gets me more fired up than ever. If I'm a Bills player, or if I'm a Bengals player, I'm going like,
that gives you a model. I guess that gives you a model of how to beat them. But like none of these teams in the AFC, I don't know why, but they haven't constructed their teams in the same way that Philadelphia has, right? If they want to use that as a stepping stone to saying, hey, the way we beat Mahomes is we just like get the 4 best defensive linemen we can possibly find through the draft or free agency, I got it. But it doesn't seem like they want to do that, right? Cincinnati's finesse, right? Baltimore, all of a sudden they want to be finesse, right? Buffalo, they're finesse. So I think they need to, if they want to compete, they want to beat this team, they need to change the structure and follow that model that's Philadelphia's got going on right now. And they don't have it.
I mean, yeah, it's a luxury to have 4 guys that can just sweep a line like that. Like, very
we'll
rare.
start with one.
No other team can do it. So I don't think that's how you beat the Chiefs, because I just don't think that that's sustainable. Obviously, it worked last night, but you had 4 of the best. I just think that other teams now are looking at them, and they might not have that Chiefs aura that they've had over the AFC for the last 8 years. People might start to see some cracks and start to get a little bit more confident, less, constrained around them, and they'll go for the jugular. I mean, that's happened when you're at the top for so long. Teams are just getting ready to come at you. John Derek, you're going to say something.
I was just going to say all good things come to an end, and that's what's going to happen. Listen, you say what you want. Kansas City's they're downhill trajectory. They're not coming back. Mark my words.
I don't know. I mean, you mean they're not coming back like ever? Like in the next like 3 years?
No, I say ever,
5 years?
but I think in the immediate future, like I think in the next few years, like I don't think they will. And also, like you're talking about their Tampa Bay, like the Super Bowl where they lost to Tampa Bay, that was a completely different. Yeah, they got beat by Tampa Bay, but they were quite, some playmakers that were still quite young on that team. They're aging. There's a lot of veterans on that Kansas City Chiefs team that you could tell they're wore out. They've been through the ringer. And so once they start making some really good draft selections and freeing up some salary cap, like I don't see it. I don't see them being peak Kansas City Chiefs they were 2 years ago or even last year. I mean, last year they weren't even as good as obviously they won a Super Bowl. It was great, but you can tell that every year there's been a little bit of a decline since that second Super Bowl that they won.
Yeah, I mean, this happens.
I think the year they beat the Eagles in that Super Bowl, I thought like that was a great Kansas City Chiefs team. But I think since then there's been decline. And
if for them to fall off, somebody else has to take it. And I don't see any AFC team is currently constructed as somebody that's just going to come in and be like, we're the team now, right? We're not afraid of Kansas City. Like, we're not afraid of anybody. You can make an argument for Baltimore a little bit, but I don't think you can make an argument for any other team in the AFC because they all have their own set of problems that are just as large or larger than Kansas City's are at this moment, from a coaching, from a salary cap, from a talent perspective. So I still think the AFC.
I disagree with the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, they have their own set of problems, but if they can get Jamar Chase and T. Higgins back, if they can make that happen and make a few moves on the defensive side of the ball, you're talking about a team that, probably could have won 12 to 13 games with one of the worst defenses in the league.
I think they're a cheap organization. I don't think there's any way in hell they're bringing back T. Higgins. I think they're a flawed organization.
I said if they can bring them back.
They had the worst. They had them both this year, and they couldn't even make the playoffs because they had the worst defense that I've ever seen. So, if you can get Cincinnati into a playoff situation, you trust Joe Burrow in that moment, but I don't trust. If you're asking me if I trust Cincinnati's organization versus Kansas City's organization, Cincinnati, I don't trust them at all. So
okay, I'm the same, but outside even you have Baltimore. Let's just say you have Baltimore, Buffalo, Cincinnati. There's still a few up and coming teams.
No Buffalo. No Buffalo.
Okay, but other teams in the AFC that can. You guys can laugh at me, but there's a very talented Denver Broncos team that's up and coming. You got the a Los Angeles Chargers team that, if you give Jim Harbaugh a couple more years, I think he's got some good things going. Even the Houston Texans, a very young team, if they can stay healthy. I mean, that's a good football team. So I think any of those teams could be in the running.
I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing at Chris just writing off the Bills like he does every year, and then like acts like he's a fucking genius when.
Well, I know it's like
win the
Chris's
Super
hatred
Bowl.
for Buffalo. It's the one team he obviously can't stand. He doesn't even like it coming out your mouth.
No, no, it's not about that. It's just like I'm not ready to write Kansas City off yet and just say that basically like this team as currently constructed is just done for, because I just don't see any team in that conference that is ready to take that on as being the marquee team in the conference. I think maybe it's just a disagreement between conferences. I see the NFC getting stronger and stronger every year. And I've seen the AFC that's now paid all these quarterbacks and their teams are just not as talented around the box. So I see an AFC a lot more wide open. I just don't see any marquee teams. I see NFC teams getting better and better. And I'm seeing AFC teams digress. So that's why I think it's still that Kansas City still has an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. Do I think they'd win it? No, but I just think the AFC is getting weaker. I know we kept talking about the AFC. I just think they're getting weaker as conference.
But when all teams are measured, like you say, by Super Bowls, if Kansas City even makes it to the Super Bowl and they're not going to win it, if the NFC's that much stronger and they have no chance of winning another Super Bowl, I guess that's my point, is like we're all gauging Kansas City off the Super Bowls they win, right? They almost did a three-peat. It didn't happen.
But you said they're done.
I think they are. I don't think they make it back to the Super. I don't think they make it back to the Super Bowl. But I'm just saying, even your opinion knows what I'm saying. Even if they make it back to the Super Bowl, you said they don't think they have a shot of winning. So,
well, it depends who they play and all that.
Mark,
stuff.
what are your thoughts? I think me and Chris are on opposite sides here. So, what do you think of the Kansas City Chiefs?
I think it's kind of wild to say I think they'll make the Super Bowl, but I don't know if they'll win. It's like once you get to the game, I think that the AFC is catching up with them, and for the last 8 years, these teams have all constructed rosters to try and compete with the Chiefs, and they've fallen short. But I think when you look at their cap space, when you look at their aging roster, you look at, just the way they were beat, and they got 3 linemen who are in their top 5 cap hit. So it's not like they haven't got an O-line that they've invested in. They have. It hasn't worked out. So they're kind of stuck there at the moment. So I don't know. I don't like what I'm seeing from them. And also, you have to go back. You were going into this season trying to do something that no team had ever done before. That was a three-peat. And you landed this short. You were short. That's going to be pretty deflating. It's going to be really hard to come into a season again, not just start up again to win a Super Bowl, but if you say, I want to go win another three-peat, that's hard. You're starting from 0 right now. That's tough. So I don't know. I think teams like the Bills, I think the Bengals, I think they're all sharks circling. And they say, we might be 1 or 2 players away, 1 or 2 coaches away. Let's go for it. Let's do it now.
Yeah. I agree with you too, Mark, on the mental side of things. I think I would agree more with Chris had Kansas City maybe lost by field goal or touchdown last night, but it was the way they were defeated. It's just, it's so deflating. Like, just got spanked so bad that it's, yeah.
We go from 1 week to arguing whether Andy Reid is the best coach of all time and Patrick Mahomes might be the best quarterback of all time to 1 loss. And now you're like, they're going to bring back both those guys. And now you're like, no chance. They're just
That's
done.
what I'm saying. You were up here. You were this close to the top of the mountain. Everyone's arguing, debating who's the greatest. Again, there's not one person on any talk show today. There's not one person here on this show that would even be able to make an argument now that Mahomes or Reid are the greatest in their positions of all time. So they've been knocked off the top of the mountain. It's going to be very hard to climb back up.
Give them an off season. If they sign a top tackle, they'll get
they
Rasheed
can't sign a
Rice
top
back.
tackle. They have no cap space, and their O-line is taking up like 60% of their...
I guess if there's one bright side, they have a couple of really good young receivers. They have Rasheed Rice, they have Xavier Worthy, Patrick Mahomes.
They can find a way to make something happen. They do voodoo if they want to restructure Mahomes or do whatever they're going to do or what have you. And I think Travis Kelce probably retiring at this point would be good for them. I think that would save them some cap room. And I don't think he fits into the future plans. If you're talking about aging, I don't think he fits into the future plans with this team. I think we saw it that he has, he looked slow and lethargic, and like he is ready for life after football. And if I'm Kansas City, I'm gonna say I thank you. You're the best tight end ever lived, but it's time to move on without him. I really believe that.
Well, I mean, you believe it. If he's released, his cap hit, $2.5 million. If he stays, $34.5 million.
There's your,
So
there's
they're
your
going to
left
save
tackle.
$32 million by releasing him.
You don't see him retiring?
That's
I can see
crazy that hasn't been spoken about. That he's
Well,
got
yeah.
1 year left at $34.5 million. But if they release him, it's $2.5 million.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But because
I
he's
mean,
Kelsey, he either has to retire or he's going to be there next year.
They can release him.
They can, but
There's
I don't
no
think
way
they
he's going
will.
to be there on that contract.
I don't think they're
If
going to
you're the
release him.
Chiefs, you're not going to sit there and go, oh yeah, we'll pay you $34.5 million based on what he produced this year.
I think they're
when
going to
there's
ask
a
him.
$32.5 million cap saving.
Or they come to the table and they say, "Hey, man, this is either we have to release you, or you go ahead and
Or you retire.
It's one of the deepest
go out
drafts.
and go
It's
out."
one of the
you know.
deepest drafts for tight ends that we've ever seen this year. And I'm sure we'll talk about it closer to April or whatever. But like this team drafts very well, and I can see them getting a top flight tight end in the first 2 or 3 rounds or whatever. And Kelsey going like, there you go, $32 million. Go get you a tackle. And in 6 months, you'd be off. Here we go. Kelsey did it again. Here we go. They retooled. They're ready to go. So let's give this team the benefit of the doubt and give them an off season to see what they can do. This team is currently constructed. No, I agree with you guys. I think there's a lot of issues here, but I've seen this team retool, and I still think they have some opportunities to do that. And I'd like to give them an off season, give them a chance to see what they do before we just write this team off next year. I'm not ready to do that at this point.
And if they do, I'm going to give you all the credit in the world. I'm going to say Chris told me. He
That's
told
fair.
me,
That's
and
fair.
I'm going to say, Chris, thank you for letting me know how the
Yeah.
Chiefs were going.
Well, yeah. I just didn't realize that was Kelsey's.
Changes your
contract
perspective a little
situation.
bit, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. It kind of makes it a little sad because no one really spoke about it. But there's no. It's like Tyler Lockett on Seattle. There's no way he's on our roster next year because if his cap hit is like $38 million and we save 20, and the production doesn't happen. So like his last game, he kind of knew. I didn't feel that with Kelsey, and no one really spoke about it. So maybe I'm wrong, but from what I just looked at then, from over the cap, which is what everyone looks at, it's a $32 million saving. There's just no scenario where he comes back unless they restructure it. They release him and re-sign him for like $5 million. Who knows?
I think
Anyway.
he's done. You watched him.
It
You
just
watched him
shows,
walking
too, like-
into Swiss Suite last night. He looked so sad.
Who would you? All right. So say Kelsey retires. Who between him and Gronk? Who do you think the greatest tight end of all time is? If you had to make that argument,
I think it's Travis Kelsey. I think Gronk's like the Shaquille O'Neal, man, in the NFL. I mean, when he was at the top, right? He was like just unguardable. But it was such a smaller time frame, right? I'm more of a longevity guy, so like I like putting up huge numbers, huge stats, huge accomplishments over a long period of time. And Travis Kelsey has been at the top of his game for what? I mean, we're talking 12, 13 years straight. So I got to give it to Kelsey.
That's such a tough one. I would guess I would probably give it to Kelsey, a little bit on the edge there, but it's so hard not to pick Gronk because just of his personality, like Chris said. Like he just had a bigger than life personality, and I loved watching Gronk play. But yeah, I guess I would have to give the edge to Kelsey. I agree with Chris.
yeah, I go Gronk. I think people forget that tight ends were supposed to be an extra blocker. They weren't these receivers, so his blocking ability is unbelievable. So as a full rounder tight end, now it's like, oh, he's a receiving tight end. Oh, he's a blocking tight end. So when they come out, you know what they're doing. Gronk could do both, so you never knew. He was very unpredictable. So I'm going with Gronk.
Can't
But,
go wrong either
I mean,
way. But we may
exactly,
be
I was about to
talking
say,
about a different tight end in the next decade.
Kyle Pitts.
Definitely not Pitts. I was thinking Bowers. If he can stay
Brock,
healthy.
yeah, fair enough. For him.
If he can stay
Actually,
healthy.
wait, Derek, since you are an Atlanta fan, I guess, or a Philly fan now.
I've never been a Falcons fan, but yeah.
Well,
But
you
yes,
were-
the Philly Dogs is what we like to call them now. So yes,
I was going to ask, like, was there any when the score was like 34-7 or 34-0, were you getting the helicopters, like the PTSD, like 28-3 was coming into the equation? And
A little bit, but sometimes you just have a feeling. And then once it got to about 6 minutes in the third quarter, guys, I was like, okay, I could officially say, like, I don't think there's going to be a comeback happening. So, yeah, I thought about it for an instant, but I was like, I don't think it's going to happen.
Fair. Anything else we want to chat about? Aaron Rodgers seems to be gone from the Jets. Sad day. Gone from the Jets.
Man, I love me some Aaron Glenn. You tell it. I love that guy. Tell it like it is. God almighty.
Well, again, if you're a first-time head coach and you see what happened to Robert Saleh, you just got to be like, sorry, Aaron, you got to go.
Read
starting fresh.
An article today is, is Aaron Rodgers going to become a Titan? And I thought, geez,
Titan.
Let's hope.
Possibly a Raider, Giant. I think he's just going to go home.
I mean, there's a lot of teams that need a quarterback. Can't see him being a Raider. I just can't see him and Pete Carroll gelling at all.
Well, you already know.
Titans, I could.
We already know who Pete. We already know who Petey's getting.
I don't know. They don't like each other.
Run it back with your guy, Mr. Russ. Run it back.
Oh boy. We'll see. Well, been a great season.
Yeah.
Are we going to come back next week? Are we going to have a few weeks off? A little bit off. We're going to enjoy
that's up to you, man.
I say we have a few weeks off, and then we come back and maybe talk about some off-season stuff and maybe some basketball. We got some good college basketball coming up and some NBA.
Yeah, ESPN comes up with a new poll every day that pisses me off. So they came out with the power rankings. They had Kansas City at 1 in the 2025, the future power rankings for the season. They had Philadelphia all the way down at 4. And then they did another thing. They did a redraft of the last draft, and they still had Caleb at 1 and had Jaden at 2. So I got a lot of things I could talk about. So I got a lot of yes, they did. I got a lot of things I could talk about. So if you want me to talk and you need some topics, I'll be here. Because if ESPN keeps coming up with this crap all off season, I'll have a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, evidently.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. The NFL is a 24/7 news cycle. It never sleeps. So we got a little bit of time off. Then we have free agency starts. Mid-March. So probably get back for that. Then we have the draft.
In Green Bay, baby. It's in Green Bay this year.
In Green Bay.
Woo!
How exciting. You going?
No, it'll probably still be 25 degrees out there. Screw that shit. Right. Going out there.
I don't know what you're warned about then. But,
well, Green Bay.
Yeah, I think for everyone that's listened this year, we'll say thank you. We've gained a lot of subscribers, a lot of videos, a lot of arguments in the comments here and there. But I think overall it's been fun.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Been real fun, learning process. We got through a full season this year, which is great. And we back next.
I don't miss Derek trying to connect his audio for 35 minutes every episode. So
I think I got it. I've done pretty well. It took me a while.
You've done very well.
There was that
random video. There was 2 of you for a good 20 minutes. I don't know what happened there.
Hey, I'm figuring this thing out. I'll get better every year.
And we'll say to anybody that listens, even though if we disagree with you or I disagree with you, I love comments. Okay, so I love when y'all contribute and give us your thoughts, whether they're wrong or I think they're wrong or whatever. But so just whenever y'all want to comment, we really appreciate it. And, let us know what you're thinking.
Well
That's
said.
it. They're pretty good words. All right, thanks everyone. We'll take a few weeks off. Hit us up. Like and subscribe, email us at thefanshuddle@gmail.com with any questions or topics. And if you want us to talk baseball, you want us to talk NBA, we'll jump back on. We got nowhere to be. But otherwise, enjoy the off season, and we'll be back soon.
Peace.
See you.